All right, so I'm just gonna kind of Hey everybody, welcome back. And today we are gonna be doing my fourth anti-haul. So for those of you who have never seen one of my anti-hauls before, just please know, first off, disclaimer, if I get a little passionate about something, it's just my opinion, and I am totally open to discussing a difference of opinion. You know what I mean? If you disagree with me, let me know down below, because I'm always interested to hear your thoughts. Secondly, this is probably going to be a little bit longer than your average anti-haul because I've started doing my anti-hauls in a different way. And what I'm trying to do is trying to maybe bring attention to things that you have in your collection already that are similar or in the same family as maybe some of these items that I'm talking about, so you can go back and use what you have in your collection. Also, please, you know, again, just understand, it's my opinion, I have 1.5 million palettes, so really this is more for my benefit than anybody else's, because sometimes I just need to talk myself out of buying every single makeup palette. And that's what this video, this anti-haul is going to be centered around, are eyeshadow palettes, because I am an eyeshadow palette junkie. I love eyeshadow palettes. I just did a collection video. I have more than I could ever use, and a lot of these palettes that I'm talking about, I really do want and I like the idea of, but I don't need them, so I'm talking myself back from the ledge. And then lastly, this eye's watering like a little biatch always. Guys, I don't know what it is. It's like I couldn't film for 2 weeks because my eyes wouldn't stop watering. And now this one is continuing to water and look like a hot ass mess, and this one's fine. I don't know, whatever. So you see pink all over my face, that's what it's from. So I will be I'll be inserting pictures of things I want to talk about above, but I'm looking down at notes as well. All right guys, I'm just gonna kind of go by brand. I've got quite a few products I want to talk about, so I'm gonna try and make this as quick as possible. We know I like to talk. But guys, let's talk about some Too Faced palettes, and I actually have four. I have four I want to talk about. Oh, makes me so sad because I like Too Faced. But the first one is the Too Faced Natural Love palette. This one is $59, and it's a beautiful palette. I like the way the palette's laid out. I like the artwork of the palette and the packaging. I don't feel like it's falling into that super overly cutesy BS that Too Faced is so absolutely guilty of, and I hate how cute their packaging is, how cutesy it is when they're marketing to older people. They're marketing to people who have the ability to go out and spend $40 on a palette or $50 on a palette, or in this case $60 on a palette. You know, so I appreciate the packaging. The colors look really beautiful. I have seen some good reviews and I've seen some not so good reviews on this palette. But the reason I'm not going to be getting it is because it's a bunch of colors from the Too Faced Natural Eye Palette, the Natural Matte, and the Natural at Night palette, plus some new shades thrown in. I mean, guys, I don't need it. I already have the Natural Matte. I would 100% recommend this palette to anybody. It's so good. This is one of my favorite Too Faced palettes. I already have it. I use it. You can't get this one anymore. I know a lot of people hated this one, but I really like that one. But guys, really, like, how many more neutral palettes can we get? And I know it has some beautiful pinks in there, but so does the chocolate bar. You know what I mean? And the chocolate bar is great quality. I love the chocolate bar. It's an old reliable for me. So I mean, I just feel like it's, and I feel like that's going to be the case with a lot of these palettes. It's just very redundant, and it's a bunch of re-promotes of shadows that you have or in palettes that you already own. So I am not going to be getting that one. So before you pull the trigger on this palette, I mean, if you don't have any of those palettes, I mean, you know, definitely try it out if you want. But if you have a bunch of neutral palettes from Too Faced, you know, you have the Semi-Sweet, you have the Chocolate Bar, you have the Natural Matte, you have the Natural Eyes, you have the Natural at Night, you have, I mean, if you already have these palettes, it would just be redundant in your collection. You know what I mean? Because you probably don't use these palettes nearly enough to justify buying backups of them. Do you get what I mean? So that is why I'm passing on that one. Next Too Faced palette that I am passing on, which was hard for me because I collect the little 10 palettes from Too Faced. I love them. I love the format. I love the formulation of the shadows in here. But the one I'm passing on is the Too Faced Peanut Butter and Honey palette. I looked at this palette. It's got a bunch of warm neutral shades in there that are very beautiful, but the only thing that's really making it unique is a yellow shade. I mean, and I do have several palettes in here that have that yellow shade, maybe not the same warm yellow, like this is the Milani Vital Brights, and it's got a nice shimmery cool tone yellow. It's not that kind of warm yellow, but really when I look at that palette, it kind of reminds me of 70s furniture. Like that's like the color scheme that I'm getting from that palette. And that's just the vibe it gives me. So the reason why I'm not buying that palette is because I don't like the yellows and the warm neutrals together. I just don't. They're just a little too like 70s retro for me. So I feel like getting the Peanut Butter and Honey palette would definitely be a redundancy for me because really, I mean, I already have all these shades, and the only thing I feel like is really significantly different about that palette is instead of this bright purple, you're getting that yellow. But from what I've heard about that palette, the yellow is not that impressive. And I've heard that from people that I really trust as far as quality of eyeshadows go. So instead of spending $36 on a palette that I would just be getting for the sense of completion of having all of these 10 palettes, I could just go out and buy a nice decent yellow shadow. So again, the one from the Milani Vital Brights is more of a cool tone shimmery yellow. I know Wet n Wild has some yellows that aren't very good, but you could go out and just buy a Sugar Pop yellow or, you know, a Makeup Geek yellow. You know, just go buy an individual yellow shade, just if that's what you're looking for. Don't buy that whole palette with a bunch of warm neutral shades that you already have just for that yellow, you know, because that's kind of how I was justifying it to myself. And I'm like, no. Finally had to talk myself out of it. I'm like, nope, I don't need it. I'm not going to buy it. And if you like it and love it, let me know down below. But I mean, you know what I mean? I just feel like it would be unnecessary in my collection. And one of you guys suggested that I do a bright yellow look, but I was looking through my collection and I really don't have like a true matte yellow shade that I want to do a look with. So I need your suggestions down below for great yellow eyeshadow. So let me know. All right, guys, the next Too Faced palette that I'm passing on is the Glitter Bomb palette. And I've just got to say, this is a side note. If I heard Jared Blandino say one more time that he invented glitter eyeshadow, I'm gonna throw up in my mouth a little bit. But the reason why I'm not buying this is because, one, the colors are really, really basic for glitters. I mean, those are glitters that if you like glitters, you probably have those colors 5 times over. I know it comes with a white base and a black base, but instead of spending $45 on that palette, so you have those bases for the glitters that you probably already have, just go out and get a NYX eyeshadow pencil and milk and black bean, and you're good to go. But another reason why I'm not gonna buy that palette is, besides the fact that I feel like the colors are really boring, is I feel like they just got beaten to the punch. I feel like if they were gonna come out with a Glitter Bomb eyeshadow, they should have done it a while ago, because I feel like I mean, in my opinion, I feel like they're just kind of copying the Moondust palette from Urban Decay. And you guys know I am partial to Urban Decay. Their aesthetic just speaks to me a little bit more. And I really like this palette. And I know a lot of people didn't like this palette because we're thinking it wasn't very pigmented, but I've got to say, I love this palette. I think it's beautiful. I mean, they're pressed glitters, so they're not going to be like super, super opaque. You know, they're meant to be toppers, you know, but I already have this palette. So I have this palette already in a formula that I know I like, that I don't get, I mean, I do get fallout with it, but it's not crazy. And I do enjoy and use this palette, but I don't need 2 glitter eyeshadow palettes in my collection. It's just unnecessary. And if I were to pick between the 2, and this one is still available, I feel like the shades in here are so much more unique and beautiful than just the basic primary colors that are in, you know what I mean, the Glitter Bomb palette. Just in my opinion. And another reason why I would suggest skipping this palette is because for the most part, people do not wear glitter enough to justify a whole palette. I mean, I love glitter. I love glitter, but I don't wear glitter enough to justify a whole palette. I love it. I'm glad I have it. But I mean, I don't wear it every single day. So instead, what I would suggest is go get just a single glitter. There are some great options in the drugstore. NYX has the Glitter Brilliance, which are about $7. They have a beautiful array of colors. I absolutely love these. I did do a tutorial with the copper one. Stunning. Or, you know, go invest in lit glitters, because they have such a crazy array. The owner of the company is super, super nice. I think her name is Linda. I talked to her at IMATS. You can buy each color in different cuts, you know, so they're really customizable. Or if you're somebody who just wants maybe a neutral glitter pop every now and then for a special occasion, I would say just skip that $45 palette and go buy one of these. They're a little on the pricey side. I want to say they're $26. These are the Stila Glitter and Glow, Magnificent Glitter and Glow eyeshadows, liquid eyeshadows. absolutely stunning. They're beautiful. They're so easy to work with. The fallout is minimal. It is the absolute easiest way to work with glitter with just the most high impact shine I have ever seen. I mean, these are stunning. I would 100% recommend these. There's so many good drugstore options. You know, go pick one or two. Don't get a whole palette that you're not going to utilize because it's just going to sit in your collection. So that's what I would suggest. I would say, you know, if you really want a glitter palette, I would highly recommend the Moon Dust palette just for the fact that it's so unique as far as colors go over the glitter bomb. Or if you're not somebody who is big into glitter, just go get one or two that you know you're going to love and use and really get your money's worth out of. And I think these Stila ones are absolutely stunning. All right, guys, the last Too Faced palette I'm going to talk about is the I Want Candy palette. I'm not even sure how much this is going to come out at price point wise, but I believe it's going to be, I would assume it'd be right around what the Nikki Tutorials collaboration was. So I guess we're almost 60 bucks. I've seen pictures of this palette. First of all, I think it's ridiculous that they are already hyping up this palette like 6 months in advance. I think that is because it's what, they started talking about it 2 or 3 months ago and it's not even coming out till what, August or September. That's something that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on in one of these other palettes about inorganic hype. But I just find the palette redundant. And I just want to say I love Candy Johnson. I think she's one of the most sincere, sweet, talented people on YouTube. I totally wish her the best of luck with this collaboration. But you look at the palette, and for something that's named I Want Candy, you automatically think it's going to be bright, bold, in-your-face colors. But it's not. It's beautiful berry neutral tones, which makes sense because if you watch Candy's videos, yes, she has the crazy pink hair and she's very colorful and bright and out there, but most of the time she just rocks these beautiful, gorgeous neutral looks. So it makes sense to me that the palette is more on the neutral side. I think that is very indicative of what she wears and a very good representation of her style as far as makeup's concerned. But so that being said, that doesn't bother me, but I just feel like, again, I feel like the palette's redundant. I mean, how many berry palettes do I need in my collection? You know, you've got the Modern Renaissance, which you know is good. It's got those beautiful pink berries. Ooh, I just almost dropped that. The Lorac Pro, I love. I know not a lot of people like this, but I love this palette. The roses, the True CoverGirl True Naked Roses. I mean, you want to talk about a beautiful rosy neutral leaning palette. I mean, this one's stunning and it's like 10 bucks. Such good quality. The Reveal 2, I mean, this is one of my all-time favorite palettes. It's got those beautiful berries and purples in there. This is 20 bucks, but you can usually get it for 10 when it's on sale. This is one of my all-time favorite palettes. I mean, guys, I could go on forever. The Naked 3, another beautiful kind of rosy berry. I mean, it's just, I feel like we probably all, if you are any kind of makeup collector or makeup enthusiast, we probably all have palettes that are so similar to that it's just going to be another palette in your collection. And again, as much as I want that palette because I want to support Candy Johnson and I love those types of colors, I'm not going to buy it because I don't need it. It would just be superfluous in my collection, so I am not going to pick that up. So no hate to Candy because I absolutely adore that girl. I think she's super talented and I hope the release is very, very successful. But I mean, how many berry neutral type palettes do I have? I could probably go into my collection and find 5 more. This is just what I'm looking at right now. All right, the next palette I want to talk about is the new Makeup Geek in the Nudes palette. This, I know I like Makeup Geek, guys. I feel like Makeup Geek is one of those brands that's very hyped up and people are very loyal to it. I feel like there are some shadows that are absolutely amazing and some that definitely don't deserve the hype, you know, so I think it does have hits and misses within the brand. And that's just my personal opinion. There are some people that go hard for Makeup Geek and think they can do no wrong. That's totally fine. I feel that way about certain brands as well. So I completely understand that impulse, you know, but I think I had heard about Makeup Geek so long that when I first got my first order, I expected like angels to sing as I was applying them to my eyes. And I do like my Makeup Geek shadows. But I feel like this palette is just completely missing the mark. So the palette is retailing for $50 and the packaging is beautiful. It's just like the Manny MUA palette. And there are some warm tone neutrals and some cool tone neutrals in there. And I want to say that 4 of the shadows are existing colors, or 4 or 5, and like 4 or 5 are new. I can't remember. I'll try and put that up here if I notate it up here, if I can find that out. So I totally believe that if you are somebody that doesn't have any nude shadows, and you love Makeup Geek, or you want to try Makeup Geek, or if you haven't picked up anything from Makeup Geek, you know, it'd be great. But again, how many neutral eyeshadow palettes do we need, guys? How many do we need? Plus, if you're somebody, you know, who has already ordered from Makeup Geek, you probably already have all of these neutral shadows. I want to say all of these except for one are from Makeup Geek. Like, I have so many neutral shadows from Makeup Geek. That's Makeup Geek. That's Makeup Geek. I just feel like the palette, I feel like she missed the mark. I feel like if they were going to come out with a nude palette, they should have done it 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, when you look at like the Mania MUA palette and the Vegas Nights palette or Lights palette, those were beautiful. They're unique. They're gorgeous. I really liked both of those. I missed out on the Vegas Nights palette, which I'm really sad about, but I really like the Mania MUA palette. But I feel like the release of this palette is just so out of step with what's going on right now. We're going into summertime. It's time for fun colors. People want to, you know, just have fun with their makeup, be bright, be cheerful. I think that they would have been much better served by coming out with a palette of all foil shadows, or of all duochrome shadows, or of all bright matte shadows, or all just a bright color summertime. I feel like this, for the price point and the, I feel like it just misses the mark. It just misses the mark for me, guys. And again, I like Makeup Geek, obviously. I like their shadows. I have a bunch. I just feel like I have so many of their neutral shadows already that I don't need to go out and buy another $50 palette. And that's why it just misses the mark for me. Guys, I feel like it wouldn't be an anti-haul in my video without talking about Tarte, but I can't help it. They do it to themselves. And the first palettes I want to talk about are the Rainforest of the Sea Volume 1, 2, and 3. Now, I've heard good things about these palettes. However, again, I just feel like they're redundant. They're the same, they're 3 palettes in that foiled formula, or that kind of wet kind of dimethicone type formula, which is good, nice. I've been in there, I've swatched the palettes, the packaging's beautiful, but it's just the same colors over and over and over and over again. I just feel like they're unnecessary. Plus, if you're somebody who is looking for a complete palette, that's not going to do it for you because they're all dimethicone type formula. There's no matte eyeshadows in there to round off a look. So you're getting 3 different palettes with some just, I feel like when you look at them, they're just slight variations of each other. And I don't feel like they're unique enough to really justify going out and getting them. I think it's just, in my personal opinion, I just don't want to spend my money on that. And I have been tempted because, again, I love certain formulas from Tarte. I love their, you know, the Rainforest After Dark palette I think is fantastic. But you get some matte shadows in there as well as some of those shimmery shadows to really balance it out. It's offering something a little bit more. But the shadows that it kind of reminded me of the most as far as the shine and the metallic shine that you get are these True Naked palettes from CoverGirl. I mean, if you want some just beautiful neutral eyeshadows that just have a gorgeous kind of wet metallic sheen to them, I think these, I mean, look at that. That's beautiful. Guys, this is a $10 palette. And on top of that, you're getting some mattes to round it off, you know, so you can create complete looks. I mean, I think these shadows are absolutely fantastic. I love this one. In the nudes, the one I just swatched was the Goldens. I mean, these are just, the pigmentation is crazy, and I mean, they perform beautifully on the eye. You know what I mean? So don't maybe spend the 30, 40 bucks on the Tarte eyeshadow palettes if you are looking for some beautiful kind of wet looking eyeshadows. Maybe check out these CoverGirl palettes because they're 1/3 of the price. Plus you get some matte shades in there that just perform really, really well. I can't recommend these enough. I think they're just phenomenal. The next palette I want to talk about from Tarte is the Clay Play palette. Again, the packaging's beautiful. I like the formulation of Tarte's eyeshadows. I've swatched this one. I think it's really nice. But again, how many matte eyeshadow palettes do I need? You know what I mean? Like, I don't need any more neutral matte eyeshadow palettes. I mean, maybe if you don't have any just all matte palettes, you know, if you don't have the Tarte Lit palette, if you don't have the Naked Basics, if you don't have the Sonia Kashuk Eyes on Neutral matte palette, which I love this palette. I mean, yeah, go ahead and pick it up. But I mean, evaluate your collection. How many matte eyeshadow palettes do you have? How many neutral matte eyeshadow palettes do you have? You probably have more than you could ever need. You know what I mean? And again, this is not hating on the quality. I'm not talking bad about the quality. I'm just saying it's just not unique in their collection. It's just recycled. I feel like they're recycling the formulas and the shadows and the shades that they're really good at and just putting it in new packaging. And because we're all makeup junkies and we want all of the palettes, we're gonna go for it. You know what I mean? And I was interested in this palette. I think it's very beautiful. I love the packaging. I love the shades. They appeal to me. I think it's a great complete palette, but guys, I don't need it. I don't need it. So, you know, again, look at the things you have in your collection before you pull the trigger on that palette, because you probably have multiple items that would suffice in the Clay Play palettes place. You know what I mean? And along that same line, I'm also not gonna buy the Swamp Queen palette. Yes, this palette is still around. This palette is beautiful to look at. This palette, I'm not gonna lie, I wanted this palette simply because of the packaging. The packaging, I think, is just stunning. It calls to me. But again, how many like pinky, reddy, neutral, warm tone palettes do I need? I have a million of them. I have a million of them, guys. Plus, from all the reviews I've read on that palette and seen on that palette, it's just glitter everywhere. And I like glittery eyeshadows. I like glitter on the eyes, obviously, but I don't need it on my face all over the place in my bronzer. You know what I mean? And so I just feel like it's just, I would never use it. That would be a palette that I was just buying for collection purposes. And another issue that I have with Tarte and with some of these brands in particular in the overuse of limited edition-ness to sell palettes. This palette's been out for what, a year and a half now? And it's still available. I mean, how many times is it gonna come back? You know what I mean? Just, if you wanna make a palette permanent, make it permanent. It's like the Carly Bible palette. I freaking love that palette. I think it's great, but it's not a limited edition palette. It's been out for like, what, 2 years now? That's crazy. That's crazy. It's at that point, it's a permanent palette in the collection, where maybe at one point it will go, you know, it will be removed from the collection and no longer be a part of the permanent collection and will be discontinued, but it's not limited edition. If it's lasted more than, you know, a year, the palette's not limited edition. It is a permanent part of that collection. But guys, I feel now anytime I hear limited edition, it just makes me roll my eyes. I'm like, yeah, limited edition, my big fat behind. But and Tarte, I think, is the absolute worst when it comes to this. Guys, I counted on their website. If you go on their website, they have 13 limited edition palettes right now. 13. That's crazy. Because you know what you're doing at that point? You are just competing with yourself. You know, you're not making what you have special and unique and desirable, because you've got so many limited edition palettes, nobody knows which way to look. I mean, and then you have subpar palettes like the Swamp Queen palette from, you know, again, I'm just taking it from reviews, you know, that are getting more play, and people are going to those palettes first instead of some of these palettes that you have that are fantastic. There are some limited edition palettes that I absolutely love from Tarte. I just got the Make Believe in Yourself palette. I love the packaging. I hate the name. I think they're falling into that Too Faced, oh, we're so cute type of vibe. This is great. I'm wearing this shade right here on my eye, Pixie. Love it. I love this palette. I think this palette's beautiful. I think it's unique in their collection. It's great quality. The package, I mean, everything's there with this palette. This is so good. I think these two palettes are so good. And I talked about this palette in my collection. I actually anti-hauled this palette because I was going to get the Tartelette in Bloom. And I said, you know, I've heard really good things about this palette, but I just feel like I want the Tartelette in Bloom more, and I feel like they're too similar. And I went in and I swatched this palette. I was like, no, I want this palette. And I have not gotten the Tartelette in Bloom because I feel like this palette is stunning. And this was a limited edition palette. This is great. It's a complete palette. The price was right. They're like 29 bucks. The shadows are fantastic. You know, the packaging's really cute. I picked up the Sex Kitten palette because I feel like this is really unique for Tarte. I feel like it's more on the vampy, glamorous side. Absolutely love it. Again, I love the packaging. I love the price point. I love the quality. So, you know, if they just released a couple of limited edition palettes, you know, at one time, I'm not saying go cold turkey because that is obviously very hard, and focus on the palettes that are so good that would get more of the attention. But these great palettes, I feel like, are not getting the attention they deserve because you have 120 limited edition eyeshadow palettes out right now. It's just, it's crazy to me. So yeah, so they have some great palettes that I absolutely love, but 13 limited edition palettes plus like 4 or 5 permanent palettes, just, it's overkill. You're oversaturating the market, and all it's going to do is just make people get tired of. I mean, it's just to the point where people don't even pay attention when Tarte comes out with a limited edition palette. Where, you know, somebody like Urban Decay does, or Too Faced does, I feel like because they haven't completely oversaturated the market, people are more inclined to pay attention because there's the chance of it being something new and different. Because when you start coming out with that many palettes, I mean, how unique and different could it be? You know what I mean? I feel like it just is going to be a negative effect on the business. But that's just my personal opinion. So there are some great things from Tarte. I especially think if you're going to get any palettes from Tarte, I think these little palettes that are in this format are fantastic. I've had really good experiences with them. I love the price point. They're complete palettes. They're great for travel. But I do not need all 13 limited edition palettes from Tarte because that's just crazy. Okay, let's move on to this palette. The Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. I am not buying this palette. I have never purchased anything from Morphe. I don't have a problem with them. I mean, I kind of do, but it's personal. It's not anything that I feel like they're evil and should die. You know, they're a business doing their thing, and I'm not going to hate on that. The reason why I'm not going to buy this palette is that, yes, it's very beautiful to look at. But again, it's a bunch of neutral, warm shadows. Guys, this palette is not revolutionary. It's not going to change your life. It is not going to be the only palette you will ever need again. It's just not. It's a bunch of warm neutral shades with some pops of color. I mean, and again, I mean, how many neutral palettes, warm neutral palettes do we need? You know, there's so many out there. Look at your collection, see what you have. And maybe, you know, and I know with me personally, I was really drawn to that bottom corner with the beautiful greens and blues. But then if I go and look at my collection, there's so many palettes I have that have those beautiful, gorgeous colors. I mean, the Electric palette, that's one. The Galaxy Chic, love this palette. Beautiful blues and greens. And again, to really get the payoff, you're going to have to wet them. But from what I've seen of the swatches and what I've seen on Jaclyn's video, I mean, you're going to have to wet those too. They're foil eyeshadows. And I have no problem wetting an eyeshadow. You guys know I do it all the time. Does not bother me at all. But I resent the fact that I'm being told that these are the greatest eyeshadows ever. I just resent that fact. I mean, guys, maybe you got the After Dark palette from Urban Decay. This one is absolutely beautiful. Some of the best formulation that has come out of Urban Decay. And guys, I'm barely touching my hand. You know what I mean? If I really want to press down, yeah, it's going to make the swatch look better. I mean, but that's just, if I wet the brush, it's going to make the swatch look better. I feel like there's such a push to hype up this palette to the level where this is the only end-all be-all palette ever. Guys, this palette right here, these foiled shades, you know, this is the BH Cosmetics. I've talked about this. I talked about all these palettes when I was anti-hauling Natasha Denona because I have all these palettes. I mean, you have the 28 color foil eyeshadow palette from BH Cosmetics. Absolutely stunning. You get a wide range of colors. Again, you're gonna have to work with them a little bit, but I feel like that's pretty normal for most shadows of this formula. You know what I mean? But still, the color payoff is great, and it's from a company that I don't feel like is shoved down my throat every time I go on YouTube. I mean, the Juvia's Place palettes, these are absolutely some of the best palettes that I've ever worked with. They're just stunning. The foils in here are amazing. The Masquerade mini palette that I have, I love these blues and greens in here. I mean, guys, there's so many options that you probably already have some of these in your collection. So you don't need to go and spend $35 on a palette, you know, from a company like Morphe. And if you like Morphe, let me know, because I would love to, you know, I feel like I keep getting this icky feeling about Morphe, and I feel like I'm being very unfair to the company because I myself have not personally tried anything, and I will completely admit that, and I will completely admit that I don't think it's bad that they private label. I don't think it's bad that their stuff's made in China. I mean, I like BH Cosmetics. I like Coastal Scents. I think the difference is that those companies are not shoved in my face. And I know I talked a little bit earlier about how Too Faced is kind of guilty of this inorganic hype, of hyping something up so much that it's just like by the time the product comes out, it's taken for granted that people that these products are going to change your life. You know what I mean? I feel like with things like the Modern Renaissance palette and the Juvia's Place palettes, I feel like with these palettes, they came out, people got a hold of them, realized how amazing they were, and the hype came organically from people's personal experience with these palettes. I feel like with palettes like the Jaclyn Hill palette and with the Sweet Peach palette, the reason why these palettes were so successful is because they were hyped to the hilt. They were telling you, this is the greatest palette ever, greatest palette ever, greatest palette ever. They were shoving it in your face months and months and months before it even came out. And like I said, I like this palette. I think this palette's great. I think I'd probably like the Jaclyn Hill palette as well. But this palette is not the end-all be-all palette for me. It is not the greatest thing that has ever touched my eyelids. And I feel like I would feel the same way about the Jaclyn Hill palette. I think it's probably a great palette. But the fact that there's so much damn hype around it just rubs me the wrong way, guys. Because it makes me feel like people are just assuming that we're just gonna take whatever we're given and just digest it and take it as truth. You know what I mean? And there was I feel like there was a date. What was there? There was an announcement for June 5th to where she could release or tell you the date of when she could tell you the palette release date. You know what I mean? So there was a date, there was an announcement for the announcement for the release. You know what I mean? It's just like, guys, it's a palette. It's a Chinese, I mean, you know what I mean? There is no way this palette is that good. Guys, I mean, we just have to stop thinking that these eyeshadow palettes are going to be so completely life-changing that they're worth all of this hype, especially when nobody's even seen or touched the product yet. And I know Jaclyn Hill's been using it, but I mean, she's trying to sell it to you. So, you know, and I'm not hating on her. She's a businesswoman and obviously very smart, but I mean, it's just, there's a difference between hearing the hype about a product like this where it came organically from people who had got their hands on it, tried it, and absolutely love it. Palette like this where it kind of came out of nowhere, but people got their hands on it, tried it, absolutely love it. And then a palette like this where nobody had tried it, we'd just seen pictures and people were freaking out because it was being hyped up. Do you see the difference? And that's why I can't buy that palette. I just can't. It just rubs me the wrong way. But let me know. Let me know if you guys, like I said, I've never purchased anything from Morphe. Again, I don't have a problem with them being private labeled. I don't have a problem with them being made in China. What I have a problem with is people not being aware of the reality of the products. You know what I mean? I've looked at a bunch of their brushes and I've got to say they look exactly like a bunch of my Coastal Scents brushes. And you know what? You don't hear these hyped up because Coastal Scents just sells their brushes and doesn't pay people to get them out there. And maybe that's stupid on Coastal Scents' part, but it also makes me want to support that company more because they're just they're just doing their thing and putting out good products. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Let me know. Let me know if you guys would be interested in me ordering some Morphe brushes that look like some of my Coastal Scents brushes or BH Cosmetics brushes and doing comparisons to see if there really is a difference. Let me know if you'd be interested in that because it's really, in all honesty, it's not fair of me to talk shit about a company when I've never really tried any of their stuff. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to say that the reason why I haven't purchased from them is because all of the hype, it just rubs me the wrong way. It's shoved down your throat and it's just, you're just like, there's no way. There's no way it's that good. You know what I mean? But let me know. Let me know down below and let me know what your thoughts on Morphe are because I'm always interested to hear. All right, guys, I've got one more thing I want to talk about, and those are the Makeup Revolution palettes. And I've had people ask me to review the Makeup Revolution eyeshadow palettes, but I just don't feel like I need them. And the reason why I'm not going to buy them, there's a couple. First of all, there's so many of them, and I know how I am. I know that there is that sense of totality, that I need to get them all, that I need to have all of them for my collection, and I don't need to do that. I just got rid of so much makeup. I'm trying to be so much more picky about what I bring in my collection. I've got to say, doing that declutter series has helped me because I have picked up some things, but I have not been picking up everything of an item that I see. I'm just picking up maybe one thing to try it out, to see if I like it. And so already I'm noticing that I'm being a smarter consumer going through that declutter process. So if you're thinking about it, I highly recommend it. So there's that sense of totality that I know I would get sucked into. So I just don't even want to open up that door. I just don't want to do it. I've got too many palettes. I've got so much eyeshadow. I don't need any more. I have tried out some other things from the line that I really do like. I like their Beyond Radiance highlighter palette. I've got some of their baked highlighters that I absolutely love. So I'm not saying the brand is bad by any means. I don't have a problem with them, with what they do. Really, it doesn't bother me. But the other reason why I'm not going to buy these eyeshadow palettes is because for the most part, and what they're known for is duping exactly higher end palettes. But guys, I already have most of these higher end palettes. And I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying because I have a problem. And I have most of these higher end palettes. I've talked about it. I love eyeshadow. I love eyeshadow palettes. So why would I buy a dupe, you know what I mean, an exact dupe of a palette or have a bunch of them if I already have the original version? Because you know which one I'm going to go for? I'm going to go for the original version. So why would I buy the chocolate bar palettes? Why would I buy the iconic palettes or, you know, whatever they are? I know they have the Lorac dupes. They have the Naked dupes. They have the chocolate bar dupes. They have the Kat Von D dupes. You know, and that's fine. If you are somebody who doesn't want to spend a lot of money on makeup and I mean, we could definitely get into the conversation on, is that plagiarism? Is it lazy? You know, this and that. But I personally, I don't have a problem with it, with them copying these makeup brands because everybody does it. You know what I mean? You go into Walmart and you're going to see copies of things that you find at Macy's, which are copies of things that you find, you know, on shops on Madison Avenue. I mean, it's just the way fashion and makeup and the way the industry is. You're always going to have those different price points, different levels, things like that. So, I mean, we can definitely talk about that kind of stuff, but I think it's a great option if you're somebody who is not a collector, but you just like the idea of a certain layout of a palette or the color selection, but you want to pay, you know, a third or fourth of the price. I think that's great. But I don't want to buy those palettes and then have them just sit in my collection and never use them because, you know, if it comes down to using the chocolate palette from Makeup Revolution or my actual chocolate bar palette, I'm going to just use my actual chocolate bar palette. You know what I mean? So I hope that makes sense. So that's why, I mean, and if I see something really, really unique from them that I want to pick up and review, I'll definitely do that. But it would have to be something that's not a dupe. But right now, I feel like that's just a danger zone that I don't want to get into because we know how I am with eyeshadow palettes. So guys, I hope this was entertaining for you, maybe helpful, maybe, you know, just opened your mind up to some things that you already have in your collection so you can avoid buying some of these makeup eyeshadow palettes, because I know that's hard for me. I love eyeshadows. I you know, was definitely attracted by most of these eyeshadow palettes that I talked about. They're things that, you know, I was tempted by, and I just needed to pull myself back and be like, look, you just did this whole declutter. You've got all of these eyeshadow palettes. Do you really need this? And the answer is no, I really don't need these things. But guys, let me know down below if I anti-hauled something you loved, or if you're avoiding these products too, or what you're having a hard time avoiding picking up right now, because it's hard. It is. It's just, you see it and you're like, it's so pretty and I want it. You know what I mean? I get so excited by color. I'm like Doug from Up. I'm like, ooh, squirrel. You know what I mean? It's just, it's how it is. So this process of anti-hauling really helps me put things in perspective. And let me know what you think about the Morphe video. Would you like me to pick up some of their brushes to compare to some of the things I have to see how unique they truly are? Because I'm interested in doing that. Maybe picking up some, you know, going on there and seeing what brushes I have from Coastal Scents, because that's my favorite brush line, and maybe picking up some Crown brushes and some Morphe brushes and really comparing them and talking about the quality and things like that. Because like I said, I'm not going to completely write off a company if I haven't tried it. You know what I mean? I'm just letting you know that it just irks me a little bit, which is why I have avoided ordering from them, but I'm not going to make a straight up judgment call on the company if I have no experience with it, because that just makes me look like an idiot. You know what I mean? But guys, I hope this was helpful for you. I want to recommend a video. Kimberly Clark, I love her. She's the queen of anti-hauling. You know, she's the one who brought this kind of to the forefront of our consciousness, and you know, she's all about smart consumerism, and I just adore her. She's so great. She's so humble. She listens to her subscribers. She just did her 14th anti-haul. So if you are not a subscriber of her, I highly recommend go checking her out. She's funny and open and just wonderful, and I love her. But guys, thanks so much for hanging out and talking about makeup with me today. I hope you guys have an amazing day, have a rockin' week, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.